Rheumatoid arthritis, or RA, is an autoimmune disease where the immune system attacks the synovial joint lining and causes chronic inflammation, pain, and joint damage. And I have rheumatoid arthritis. Not only do I have rheumatoid arthritis, but I have 4 other chronic conditions. But in this video, I'm going to be sharing my journey with rheumatoid arthritis, how I got into remission, and the toolkit that helped me get into remission, and not only that, but helped me follow my dreams as well. So, first part was the diagnosis of RA. I was diagnosed with RA, or JAA, which is juvenile idiopathic arthritis, and then that later turned into rheumatoid arthritis as I grew, but I was diagnosed at 14. During that time of my life, I was a competitive gymnast, and with that came many hours in the gym, many stressful events and competitions, but there was a certain time, and I remember this vividly, where I was on floor exercise and I was going through my floor routine, and after my first tumbling pass, which was a double back, I landed and something fell off. I continued my routine and I continued dancing, and all of a sudden everything started to go black, and I started to almost pass out from the amount of pain I was feeling. I limped to the sidelines and I got really red in the face, and I was basically fading in and out because the pain in my knees and my ankles were so bad. I thought I broke something, my coaches thought I broke something, but it was weird that the pain was both knees and both ankles. My parents were called, I was picked up, and the next day we were at the doctor. And my pediatrician told me to go to a rheumatologist because my labs came back a little weird. And at the rheumatologist, I was diagnosed with juvenile idiopathic arthritis. And that diagnosis was very difficult for me to handle because I was in a lot of pain, and it meant that I was going to be out from gymnastics for a long while, and a long while meant permanently. So I didn't know that at the time, though. But 14, I was in 8th grade, and I was just, graduating 8th grade and going into high school, and I was still having these issues. These issues meaning my joints were hurting. And by joints, I mean both of my knees, both of my ankles, both of my wrists, and my fingers. So some days it would be very difficult to try to hold a pencil and to write and to type. Other days I could, I felt like I could do gymnastics and I was doing cartwheels around the house. That's the extent of the range that I was in for a couple months during my, the early diagnosis stage. And then once I got into high school, it all just kind of fell apart. I was in so much pain. The swelling in my knees and my ankles and my wrists were absolutely catastrophic. I think I have some pictures and I can put them up on screen now. But it was really bad. The swelling was bad. The pain was bad. I was in and out of the hospital for years, pretty much all throughout high school. I missed a lot of regular high school activities like clubs and sports and sporting events and dances and stuff like that because I was hospitalized. And it was just really difficult. In addition to all of that going on, the medications that I was put on were also very, I don't want to say difficult because that's not a good word, but they had a lot of side effects, and whatever side effect you could think of from a medication, I pretty much had. I was on methotrexate for a while, and I developed an allergy to that because my reactions were so severe. I was on a bunch of different biologics, and I was on steroids for a long time, both the oral steroids and infusions. And I got a really bad case of moon face. Moon face is where you are on so many steroids, your face puffs up. And I might put pictures in, I might not, because that was a very embarrassing time in my life, because I went from competitive gymnast, abs of steel, muscles everywhere, to somebody who was just not active, swollen in all the wrong places, and the steroids made me gain weight. And there's nothing wrong with gaining weight, there's nothing wrong with being overweight, but for me personally, it was just a very big shock going from a gymnast dancer body to something that wasn't that. And it was just such a big shock, and it was difficult to grapple with that. As well, with the steroids, I had the oral and the infusions, but I also had steroid injections, which I would receive at the hospital anytime I would get admitted, which was very frequent. So that was very painful, and recovering from that took a while. But it was just 4 years of trial and error, and with medications, and just missing out on a lot of my youth, which really stunk. It sucked. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It felt like shit. But through that time, I kind of learned how to deal with my chronic condition, and how to make bad days better, and how to make good days great. So, that was kind of my struggle with RA, and those were definitely not great times, but we overcame them. And now I'm going to share some tips which help me get into remission and get into a better place with my RA. So I have notes on my phone, so if you see me looking down and reading off of that is exactly what I'm doing. I think the biggest tip I can give is to advocate for yourself when you're talking to your doctor, either primary or rheumatologist. You need to advocate for yourself, because I know there was a lot of times where I felt dismissed. I felt that the pain I was feeling was just kind of dismissed or not recognized to the severity that I was feeling the pain in. And there were some times where I would go into the hospital and be like, hey, I can't walk, I can't function, I'm not going to school, I can't even grab a pencil, and I'm literally in tears. And they would just be like, have you tried Tylenol?
What the hell?
And that was one of the most frustrating things I've ever experienced in my life. Going to the hospital for being in so much pain and being asked if I tried Tylenol, and then them giving me Tylenol and saying, just try Tylenol for a couple of days and then come back if you're not feeling well. What makes you think I haven't tried taking Tylenol? And what makes you think when I tell you, the doctor, hey, I've tried Tylenol, I haven't taken Tylenol this time around because it doesn't help with, especially in the previous cases, I need a stronger medication, this is why I'm here. What gives you the right as a doctor? I guess it gives you the right as a doctor, but like, it was just so frustrating, because to me it was like, what gives you the right to tell me that something I tried and it didn't work for me is gonna magically work because you said it's gonna work. It's part of your protocol first steps, even though I told you that your first steps aren't working, and to believe me as a patient that it's not working. That's one of the most frustrating things I've been through, and I hated every time that happened to me, because then I would be sent home with Tylenol. I would take the Tylenol for a day, get in worse pain, come back to the ER and be like, one of your doctors sent me home with Tylenol and it's not working. And I'm like, oh, you tried Tylenol? Okay, well, I guess we'll admit you for the pain. I digress. But yeah, so that's what I'm saying, advocate for yourself, and I have tips for that. So what I did is that I tracked all of my symptoms, the times of my symptoms, the extremity of my symptoms in my notes app, in a Google Doc. It was in a Google Doc for a while because I could categorize everything. And then it started in a journal, but then that I had so many symptoms that like I needed something bigger, so I moved to a Google Doc, and it was more accessible because I could just have it on my phone. So I tracked all my symptoms from nausea, vomiting, swelling, pain, fatigue, and I tracked all of that in a Google Doc. And then once I was able to, show up at the ER or to my rheumatologist, I can just be like, here's what's happening. This is what I'm experiencing on a daily basis. Please help me. Please fix these symptoms. Like, tell me what to do. Because I've charted all of this for you, and I've had documentation of my symptoms and my illnesses. So help me. And I think that was a big help, especially for my rheumatologist, to be like, okay, you're experiencing this amount of pain and you're experiencing this amount of nausea because of the pain. Let's get you on Zofran. Let's get you off this biologic and onto a new one. This old biologic, it looks like it's not working anymore. So let's get you on a new one. And that's what really progressed me forward in my care. There are very important labs you need to look out for. Either request or, I'm pretty sure that, your physician will request these labs regardless, but for you to understand what these labs mean is very important. So we'll go pretty much step by step, and then I'll have a little chart on screen being like, oh, this is the lab you should look out for, and then the range that it should be in. So, and then I'll link that chart down below so you could access it at any time. Okay, so first you have your SED rate, which gauges how much inflammation is in your body by measuring how quickly red blood cells separate from the other cells in your body. The higher your SED rate is, the more inflammation you have. So you would really like a low SED rate. And then you have C-reactive protein, CRP, which measures the level of CRP, a protein produced by the liver, which signals inflammation. So you want low values for this one as well. And then you have your rheumatoid factor, RF factor, which is a protein made by the immune system, which may attack healthy tissue if it's produced. High levels of this RF factor means that you have RA. Again, another one you want to have low to pretty much none of. And then you have your anti-CCP antibody test, which tests for a certain type of antibody in the body that can be found in the blood of 60 to 80% of people with RA. Usually you want like less than 20 units of it, I think. I'll have it up on screen again. Finally, you have your anti-nuclear antibody test. So anti-nuclear antibodies are a type of antibody, which is a protein that attacks your own tissue. So the presence of the anti-nuclear antibodies can indicate an autoimmune condition, which is RA in this case. So you want a value that's less than 1. There are also some questions that you should be asking your healthcare provider, probably your rheumatologist, once you are diagnosed with RA. There's a big list that I will link down below of questions that you could cherry pick from if you want to ask your healthcare provider, but I just selected ones that I know I asked my healthcare provider and that provided me with the best answers. So my first question that you should ask is, what does this medication or treatment plan specifically target? So there's some medications that target pain, there's others that target the inflammation, and there's even some that can lower your neurological response to the inflammation and pain. So there's definitely a lot of different types of medications that are used to treat RA. So I would ask your healthcare provider what medication that you're putting me on, what does this medication specifically do? So if so you're informed about what it does and you're not just guessing, why isn't the inflammation going down? Well, your doctor prescribed pain medications. That's probably why the inflammation isn't going down. Just so that you're aware of what your body may or may not react to with the medications. Talking about medication effects, what are the side effects of said medication or treatment plan? I feel like that's a big one, because you always want to be aware of the side effects, just in case you have an adverse effect to the medication. You're prepared for that side effect. You're prepared to be nauseous. You're prepared to, have some vomiting. And you're prepared to tell your doctor, hey, I know this was a side effect. This is occurring, anytime I take this medication. Can I come off of it? Can something be done? Make sure that you know the side effects of the medications you're taking so it doesn't just become another symptom to treat. My next question to ask is, how will we know if my treatments are working? How long will it take to see benefits from the treatment plan or medication that I'm taking? This is a big one because with biologics, which is a type of medication that lowers your immune system function in RA, with biologics, it might take a month or two for it to start working. So you definitely want to know if you're getting on one of those medications that isn't like a fast acting or a fast release type of medication, so you know to expect either immediate relief or delayed relief. My next important question is, when should I, if my symptoms worsen, or if certain symptoms worsen, should I go to the emergency room? Should I call you first? What is the best contact number to directly get in contact with you, my rheumatologist, my primary care provider? I feel like once I learned what the best way was to contact my rheumatologist, things started going quicker. I started getting medication quicker. I started getting, answers quicker. And maybe it's annoying for them to be like, I don't know, here's my extension line, like call that and I'll answer. But if you're in an excruciating amount of pain, then I don't care. I'm going to need to get into contact with you, my doctor, to help me, because you're my doctor. Another question you could ask is that if there's anybody else that should be added to your care team. So for example, my rheumatologist definitely said that I should keep close contact with my endocrinologist, which I already had because of my type 1 diabetes. But it could be possible, if you're on a bunch of steroids, that there would be adverse effects, that you should be in contact with a endocrinologist, which focuses on hormone function and all of that good stuff. So definitely ask your rheumatologist if you need more people in your healthcare provider team, just in case. My final question you should ask your healthcare provider is if your insurance is going to cover the treatment plan suggested or the medication suggested to take. I feel like that's just a good question to ask in general. You never know, especially now with Medicaid and Medicare and Obamacare and all that stuff. Trump. Not very great for the healthcare space, but I think that's a good thing to ask as well. And also, a big part of advocating for yourself is knowing when to ask for a second opinion, knowing when to switch physicians. If you feel like you're not receiving the standard of care you want to be receiving or that you need to be receiving, please reach out to other people, to other physicians. There will be a doctor who wants to care for you and wants you to get better. It may not be the one you're currently at. You may need to search for a while, but once you find the right doctor, it will make so much more of a difference. Okay, moving on to my second tip, which is managing morning stiffness. I always, especially in the colder months, I always wake up with morning stiffness. Even if I'm in remission, I still have my good and bad days, but morning stiffness is something that I think any arthritic person can't escape. But my biggest tip in this category is to keep your body warm, or to at least keep your joints warm that are affected. I like to sleep in the cold, but I know that's not good for me. So I usually sleep with a heating pad between my legs so my knees are okay in the morning, and I sleep with 2 socks on so my ankles are good. Everything else I can warm up later, but as long as those two are good, then that's great. So my other tip is to wake up 20 minutes before you actually need to get up and start moving, just because those 20 minutes you can allow yourself to do these next tips, which are heating pad. Love my heating pad. Place your heating pad on the affected joints. I think the most important joints you could heat in the morning are your knees and your ankles, because as long as you can get up and start moving, everything else will follow. So heating pad on your joints, on affected joints. And then you could also do a 3 to 5 minute routine of gentle range of motion, just marching in your bed, or add the action of marching in your bed while you're laying down, or just extending your leg and bringing it back and doing ankle circles, something like that is just really light and easy, that you could just do to just get all the creaks and cracks out before you get up and start putting pressure on your joints. Another thing you could do is take a morning shower with warm to hot water. That always makes me feel better. And again, allow yourself this buffer time in the morning to do these things. So, like I said, 20 to 30 minutes before you actually need to wake up. What I do is that if I have to wake up at 8 o'clock because I have class at 9, I set my alarm at 7:15 because it takes me a while to first wake up. And then since I need to wake up, I immediately put my heating pad on my knees, and then I slowly get out of bed. I'm still a little creaky, so I hop in the shower, and then I get out of the shower, and then it's 8 o'clock. So I'm ready for my day, to start my day at 8 o'clock like I needed to. Just have extra steps, having a new normal, and that's okay. And also, another thing that I learned is that when you're really feeling it, when you pretty much know you're going to wake up with morning stiffness, I would sleep in a sleeping bag, because all of that warmth your body generates during the night, the sleeping bag keeps it in. So that's also a good tip. My next tips are for fatigue. Chronic illnesses, and especially RA, you're gonna be fatigued. Your body is, working on overtime, and that's okay. You just need some help. So you definitely need to budget your energy. And by budgeting your energy, I think, for me at least, it means only doing the things that must be and needs to get done for that day. So for example, I wake up, I know I have a test, I know I need to turn in 2 homeworks tonight, I know I have a homework due tomorrow. Is that a pressing issue? No, I'm only going to do the things that absolutely needs to get done today. And you can apply that to your social life, to your work life, to your academic life. I'm just giving an academic example because pretty much my world revolves around academics at this point in my life. Another tip for fatigue is to batch tasks. What I mean by that is to basically separate your tasks that you need to do for the day or the week into good day tasks and bad day tasks. So for good day tasks, I'm thinking like cleaning, doing a big project, doing a craft that you wanted to get done forever. For bad day tasks, again, doing just the bare minimum, what you need to get done, and then maybe watching a show or two just to keep your mental health afloat. So what I'm saying is, on good days, you can allow yourself to put on a little bit more than the bare minimum. On bad days, do the bare minimum. And don't feel bad for doing the bare minimum. That's okay. You're dealing with something many other people don't have to deal with. You're already doing above and beyond the average person on a daily basis, good day or bad day. Don't feel bad about it. My last tip for dealing with fatigue is to make a routine. your body responds best when you have a routine, especially when you're a fatigued person. So I would say have a soft bedtime for yourself, where you're going to bed at relatively the same time every night and you're waking up at relatively the same time every day. Also, try not to consume a lot of caffeine. I'm going to be controversial and say, if you really do need it, have a coffee or two. Do not do energy drinks. Please do not fall in that hole. I know it's very tempting and I know it does help, but it's so bad for you and it's so bad for your health. So please don't do that. That was my rant on caffeine. But try not to consume as much caffeine. Make sure you have some outside time and some inside time. Just create a daily routine for yourself and, lightly stick to it, that you're doing like the basic skeleton outline of your routine every day. Okay, my next tip is for movement and exercise. So with arthritis, you want to do something that's low impact. And by low impact, I mean like, especially for cardio, if you're like a cardio person, definitely like cycling, swimming, walking, no running. I don't think you should run if you have arthritis. I feel like that's very high impact, especially on your knees and ankles, that it's just going to deteriorate whatever is already deteriorating. It's not good. Resistance training is great. I think for me at least, I try to move daily, and it's good if you move daily. Even if you're hurting a little bit, try to move just a little bit. I always find that if I move when I'm in pain, especially with morning stiffness, it helps a lot. It helps a lot. I will still be, there's a little aches and pain, but definitely not as much as if I didn't, work out or move. And I think if you're swollen one day and you really don't want to work out, have your off day. Maybe just try to move. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Don't force yourself, but try to do little movements, even if it's just getting up and like cleaning or taking a shower, something light. It doesn't have to be a full-on workout. I'm committed to going to the gym. What I've done is, because I can't get to the gym, unfortunately, I have a reformer Pilates board that you see on TikTok, one of those like colorful ones. So I have that. I have it in my dorm room. I use it every day, either if it's just abs or if it's legs or if it's arms or it's a full body day. I do something every day, just something simple. And I also have my gymnastics, like conditioning stuff, that I usually just do body weight exercises. I have that background, so I use it. So just something light. Again, nothing too high impact. And then once you start, going into remission or feeling better from your arthritis, I would definitely do strength training and resistance training, because you really want to build up your muscle, healthy muscle around your joints that are affected, so that you're taking the but you're taking the strain off of your joint and you're moving it to your muscles. You have some cushion around there, so that when your arthritis starts acting up again, you have more of a safety net to fall on. You're not going to be, needing to walk, with crutches, or to walk with a cane, or to be in a wheelchair. What saved me from being in a wheelchair actually is the muscle I gained from gymnastics. I had a doctor directly tell me and my mom that if she, meaning me, wasn't a gymnast, she would be in a wheelchair by now. And that was one of the A, scariest things I've ever heard, but B, it was like, wow, okay, thank God for me being muscular and me having, all of my muscles and abs, and being called a freaking buff girl when I was little. So my next tips are for mental health and really just regaining and sustaining your sanity while you're going through your RA diagnosis and journey. I think my first tip is to allow yourself to be frustrated, to be scared, to be sad, to mourn your old body. This is a difficult diagnosis. It's hard to, realize that you might not be able to do some things that you used to do because of this diagnosis, and that's okay. You're allowed to be angry, you're allowed to be sad, you're allowed to want to punch somebody in the face because you can't box anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't do gymnastics anymore, and I wanted to punch somebody in the face. I wanted to cry my eyes out. That was like a big part of me and my identity that I lost to something that I couldn't control. So allow yourself to feel these emotions and allow yourself to express them. Just express them in a positive way. Maybe not a positive way. Express them in a healthy way, whether that means exercising, journaling, screaming into your pillow, talking to somebody, talking to a friend, talking to a therapist, talking to the wall. Just get those feelings out there. Another big tip for mental health sanity, I think, is to learn how to separate your productivity levels from your worth. And I feel like this is more of a personal thing, but because I wasn't so productive with the whole arthritis thing, because I literally couldn't even pick up a pencil to write or type or do anything with my hands, so I wasn't productive very much for schooling, and I wasn't productive in gymnastics, of course, because I couldn't move. I felt like I was just a shell of the person that I used to be. And to feel that is okay, but to link it to my worth is where it isn't good. So I don't really think I've fully learned how to separate my productivity from my worth yet. It's something I'm still working on, and I think it's okay to admit that. But something that's helped me with that is to tell myself that I'm doing the best I can, and that every day is a new day. There's 24 hours in a day, and everybody uses them differently. So if I start my day at 5 o'clock and I end my day at 10 in the morning the next day, well, I used my 24 hours. It was just 5 p.m. to 10 a.m. So yeah, I think just kind of redefining how I see time as well also helps. Another thing I should say for mental health is to find a community that embraces you with this new diagnosis, with this new you. I think it's important to find people that support you and that will uplift you no matter what, and whether that be friends, family, or something outside of that. I think that's something great, and I want to stress the point to not be embarrassed, to not be scared, to not be deterred, to find a therapist, to reach out for, psychiatric help if it does get to a point where you feel like you need it. If you need that help, please take it. I will be the first one to admit that I'm in therapy. I've been in therapy since I was 16 because of this diagnosis and the difficulties it caused me. I've been so much better, so much healthier since getting a therapist, and I'm viewing the world and my diagnoses so much differently than I used to. And I think it's very important to spread the message that not only to find your community, but if you really do need that help, to please get that help. I also want to say that even with medications and these tips, and even if you do find your new normal, every day isn't going to be a good day or a great day. You will have your bad days, and that's totally fine. That's just life. That's going to happen. And maybe you won't go into permanent remission. Maybe you will have another flare up, and that's okay. That's totally fine. It doesn't mean you failed. It just means that something's not working. We need to adjust. We need to create a new plan. We need to pivot, and that's totally fine. I don't think you should consider yourself, failing if your health isn't where you want it to be right now. And I think that's still something that I have to learn, and I think is probably a little hypocritical to tell you guys, but I think it's important that I say it. Okay, and that's the video. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I think I'm going to make this type of video a series within my channel to be like, I struggled with blank, and share my story and then give some actionable tips for you guys to follow. So if you guys want more of this content, please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.